Welcome to a very special episode of the Splitfire Gaming Podcast. It is another review of another tournament. This one was the New Year's Bloodbath, which was at Stockton. And I have two very, very special guests to join me to talk about it. Internet superstar Scott from the previous episode. Welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be back.
How does do you get people coming up on the street asking for signatures now, considering it's the most popular video I think I've ever done?
I mean, to be honest, that's been going on for years. Like sometimes if you are quiet, you can hear the adoring fans out the front chanting my name, even at this time on the evening.
Well, I can only hope that I've increased your internet profile or fan base, put it into the stratosphere.
I was just going to say, Scott, is that not just for your dog?
Yes, yeah, it probably is. Yeah,
that's 100% true.
Yeah.
And barging in there on the other intro is Steve, who you may have heard any reference to him in previous episodes as being someone who just is an excellent player, and you're rather baffled as to you'll be playing and then you'll have no recollection of what happened, and then you'll be at the end of the game having lost. So welcome, Steve, onto the podcast.
Thank you.
How do you do that?
He's an all-round bad guy.
Yeah, I'm just awful. I really am.
You know, like Elysia and Battle of Elysia with Caesar and that, and where it's like the Gauls are surrounding them and are in the town, and then it's just cut to Caesar's killed them all. That's sort of like how you play the game of Warhammer. From my observations, anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's mainly to what happened in our game when we played it. Where was it? Was it Sheffield or Derby?
It was Sheffield.
Sheffield, yeah.
And then again, when I tried a list against your halfling Bretonians, that was... Don't know what happened, but all my army is dead.
Yes, good times. Yeah.
We played the White Lion Horde, Mark, because you deserve it.
You know, it's getting old, this criticism of my love of White Lions and Ilariel.
I don't have any sympathy, to be fair, when I was facing off that White Lion and Ilariel horde twice. It got what it deserved, I think.
Moving on, this is a pro High Elf podcast. You're the first person ever to ask to be on this podcast rather than me begging people to turn up to do an episode. So thanks for that. That shows we're going up in the world.
Yeah, I was just starting to feel a bit lonely and left out, to be honest. It was more my insecurities more than anything else.
Well, you're always on Alan's podcasts on Toy Soldier Tales, so you're sort of like the Uncle Albert recurring character to his Del Boy. So I didn't really want to interfere with that.
That is the best set of descriptions ever.
Yeah, I've even got the beard to match, to be fair.
During
it's not quite as white, but it's getting there, yeah.
During the War of the Beard, whatever. That's a rubbish joke, I'll cut that. Anyway, we all signed up for New Year's Bloodbath at Beanie Games in Stockton. It was a bit of a different one. I thought before we go through what actually happened, we'll just go through a bit of the comp. So it was a 2,000 point tournament, and interestingly, no lord choices were allowed. You could only have heroes. There were no special characters allowed. The units could only be a maximum of 400 points each, and you had to use Highlander selection rules, so you could only pick one of each unit, and if you wanted another one, you had to have used everything else in that section before you went round again. So you had to use everything in core before you could use a second unit of something in core. What did everyone think of that system?
I really liked it, actually. It's something different. It makes people think, makes people perhaps choose different choices than they might have done. I think it gives a bit of a leg up to the weaker books, simply because I think in the stronger books, a lot of the really good stuff is in the Lord section.
Yeah, sorry, I was just going to sort of say I absolutely agree. I think 2,000 points is just an interesting points value as well. And then without Lords and Highlanders, some of the lists were just really quite funky that you just wouldn't see in a sort of your typical competitive event.
I think what I liked about it was 2,000 points. The temptation is then just to min max, so you'll have one super unit, but now you can't do that because it's capped at 400 points. So you had to think again about unit composition, and again with a Highlander, you can't just take like 2 mages for high elves. You can't do that because it's cycling through Dragon Mage, a Lothern Sea Helm, a Noble, a normal mage, and then but you can't fit all that into 2,000 points. So it made making the list for me anyway a lot more. I quite enjoyed thinking about how to make the list.
Yeah,
Yeah.
agreed. To be honest, I mean, I find list building one of the most fun parts of Warhammer. To be honest, now, maybe it's just because I'm a little bit sad and a little bit of a Warhammer nerd, but I'm okay with it. So yeah, trying to build a different type of list was quite genuinely fun. I enjoyed it.
To be fair, Spot, if you're sad for doing that, then I'm full on depressed. As I often in my spare time just think, I'll just see what funky list I can come up with, just on the
No,
off chance.
absolutely.
I'm sure everyone here knows because I send them out to people and say, "What do you think of this?"
It must have been interesting for you, Steve, not to have anything really to break for this comp, because there's no points or anything like that. It's just a set of restrictions.
It was actually quite easy for me because I just took one of the lists I'm considering for Triple Crown in May, which was Highlander anyway, or almost Highlander, and just chopped out the relevant bits.
You must just have like a filing cabinet of fuck you lists. Just what will I use today?
Yeah,
Um,
I've got different categories. I've got the fuck category, and then I've just got the annoy the hell out of people category. That's my main.
it's such a fine line between all of them things. Another interesting thing about the tournament was it didn't use 20-0 exactly. The most you could ever get for tournament points for victory point difference was a 17-3. And the extra points were made up with secret objectives, which were secret. They were handed out before the first game, and you had 5, and you had to pick one before each game, and you couldn't use them again. So I actually really liked that as well because it made you have to think about another thing in the game, not just getting as many victory points, but there's things you could do, whether it's worthwhile trying to go for the secret objective or not, which we'll talk about more in the games. But I've never seen that before in any of the tournaments I've been to, and I think that was quite an interesting thing to add.
I totally agree. What I thought was even more interesting wasn't just that it was a bonus 3 points for achieving it. If you didn't achieve it, you achieved a -3, which can have a really sort of big swing of up to 6 points, which I found really quite different and added a little bit, certainly something extra at the tournament. I thought.
Yes, because it meant that if you achieved your secret objective, even if you actually got stomped and cleaned off the table, you still got a minimum of 6 points. I think my understanding. So I think that's really good.
It's quite a big swing actually if you get it and the opponent doesn't. That's like 6 points in effect.
Yeah.
It made a huge difference in our game when I played Scott. Yeah.
Spoilers, don't just give away some highlights like that in the no one will stay at the end of the episode if you give that away.
I'm trying to build up some anticipation.
Yeah, it's tense here in the recording studio. So that was the comp. Shall we go through what we took in our list? I can do mine first because it's on here. So I eventually went for surprise high elves. For my heroes, I took a level 2 Law of Heaven's mage with the Talisman of Preservation, and a noble as the battle standard bearer who had the Shield of the Merworm and the Sword of Might. I went for 29 archers with a musician standard bearer, 5 Illyrian reavers with a bow and spear, 5 silver helms with shields, 24 Phoenix Guard, 5 Shadow Warriors, 27 White Lions with the Banner of Eternal Flame, Bolt Thrower, and a Phoenix.
Was it? Can I just ask, what was your? Did you have sort of a general tactic or thought process with the list, Mark? Was there any sort of thought behind that? Was it stuff that you just quite fancied using? Was there
It's sort of, this was sort of like a first draft that I just played a few games with, and just got to quite like it. Phoenix Guard are there for holding things up and defense. The White Lions, in theory, should be able to cut through stuff. They're sort of the aggressive unit. Phoenixes are Bolt Thrower for any armor penetration at range. I like Shadow Warriors just to chuck in to be a nuisance, so they went in. And the BSB, it's also with only 2,000 points, like sort of cheaping out on magic weapons. So Shield of the Moem, I thought, well, that's a pseudo 4-up ward save in combat. And I like archers. Archers always tend to do something impressive. So that's where most of my core went. So it's just the standard idea of pinning stuff with Phoenix Guard and hitting it with the Phoenix, or sending the White Lions into whatever heavy armor there was, and they should be all right. And then, as we were discussing on the last episode, Laura Heavens, because I was going for hopefully Ishar Blizzard, and I was hoping for something like Harmonic Convergence just to apply to the White Lions so they could re-roll. There's less defensive stuff I could take, because naturally you would be taking Banner of the World Dragon and a Razor Standard for the Phoenix Guard, which I'll talk about later. Is I probably should have dropped some more Phoenix Guard to pay for that in the end, but I didn't take it. And it's noticeable over the 3 games what it is lacking from when you don't take those things, or where you can't take the protection for the White Lions or the extra AP for Phoenix Guard. But that's just how it ended.
I think the lack of the armor piercing on Phoenix Guard does definitely hurt them a lot.
Yeah, definitely.
They just become an absolute tank of a unit, because they never die, but they never kill anything either.
That became a real problem in the last game. Spoilers. Yeah, if I wrote it again, I would cut something. See, you can't make it over 400 points, which is where this comp's coming in. So 24 Phoenix Guard with a champion musician and standard bearer is 390 points. So something's going to have to, 40 points are going to have to come off that to put the Razor Standard on it.
20 is probably enough, to be honest.
Yeah,
2,000 points.
More is better when it comes to Phoenix.
Yeah, 20 with the standards better than 24 without, would be my gut feel.
I would agree with that now, but then that's after the tournament where it's no use.
It's always useful for future games.
Until he runs it again.
Yeah, exactly.
You'll be back with your standard.
And the Banner of the World Dragon. But I quite like the list. When it worked, it sort of, the theory behind it sort of worked in some cases, but the core is sort of writes itself anyway. The Silver Helms are just meant to be annoying chaff, like hard chaff, rather than a unit to do anything. That was a theory behind it.
I think it's a solid theory. It's got anvils, it's got hammers, it's got magic, it's got shooting, it's got a bit of everything.
I quite liked it as a list. A few tweaks.
Quite a decent all-round list, to be fair.
What did the Chaos Dwarfs bring?
So I brought Chaos Dwarfs. Yeah, to be honest, we spoke about this at the event, Steve, I, and Alan. 2,000 points of Chaos Dwarfs, for the most part, essentially writes itself. So I've not used my Chaos Dwarfs in like a good few years, to be honest, and actually never at a tournament before. So for core, I took 40 Hobgoblins with bows and 20 Internal Guard with Fire Glaives. For those who don't know, it's somewhere between a gun and a halberd, and makes Chaos Dwarfs even more outrageously expensive. So for only 20 of them with full command, it's 377 points. It's a big investment, and they're not particularly great.
Are they like the fantasy equivalent of Guardian Spears from Adeptus
Yes.
Custodes?
Yeah. Yes. Very much that. But obviously less good. Special was one Death Shrieker Rocket, one Iron Demon, Hellbound, and one Magma Cannon. And then for rare, I took a unit of Hobgoblin, Wolf Riders, and a Kadai Destroyer,
Of course.
of course. And then the hero slot was Castland BSB with the Mask of the Furnace, which essentially gave him a +1 to his armor save and a 4-up ward, as essentially the most important character to keep alive. A Demonsmith Sorcerer, level 2 on Death, with Armor of Bazrak the Cruel, which is just a flat 2-up ward save and magic resistance 2. And then a Hobgoblin Khorne on a Wolf, with their Charm Shield, Sword of Might, who was super chaff, / War Machine Hunters, which paid off sometimes and less so certainly on others. To be honest, the list is fairly standard, I think, for a Chaos Dwarf list, certainly at this points value. It relies heavy on its big hitters, which is the War Machines and the Train and the Kadai. The core's not really achieving much, to be honest, and due to the games I had, for the most part, Magic was only even remotely useful in one game, sadly. It's a bit of a spoiler. But I think lesson learned from it, which is weird after our last podcast chat and how I normally play Warhammer. Weirdly, I just wasn't aggressive enough with the army, would be my takeaway overall.
So you went contrary to your own nature and then cost. Yeah. So is a Chaos Dwarf setup? I've never played again. Oh yeah, I have once in a tournament, but I'm not really. I assume it's the same concept behind Dwarfs of like castling up, or is it not?
I mean, yeah, for the most part, just they're not as good at actual full distance range as a standard Dwarf list. They're just a much more limited list. Like what they've got against the right setup is very good, but against the wrong setup is not.
And you've got like, is the Iron Demon? Is that a combat thing or is that a range thing?
I mean, it's essentially a steam train. It's excellent against the right setup. As Steve would point out, it's not good against Slayers for certain. And it's not good against anything that's that's a mount, because in combat it very much relies on its thunder stomps and impact hits. So for the grind, if you're in with cavalry, it will achieve nothing at all. But its gun's not bad either. It does. You roll 2 artillery dice, pick the highest, and then roll a hit with it, and then it's strength 6, D3 wounds. So against the right, it's good at killing monsters, or monstrous beasts is what it is, and I love it.
I saw the model. I like that.
Yeah, the model is stunning. As with all the Forge World Chaos Dwarf stuff, is in my honest opinion, which is essentially the reason I took them, just to get them off my shelf and onto a gaming table.
Well, I suppose if you're going to invest the £5,000 it costs to get a small Chaos Dwarf army, you might as well get the use out of it.
Yeah. It's not a cheap army, sadly.
Not in any sense.
No, they're so expensive points-wise as well, like such a point sink. And then two out my 3 games, I played Civil War with the treacherous Dwarfs, who abandoned their Chaos Dwarf brethren back pre-Hashut days, when the world fell apart, and one of those people was Steve.
To say, speaking of the evil dwarfs, good segue. Steve, what was your list?
My list was what I would generally take as a dwarf army. I mean, I used to play dwarfs a couple of decades ago now, probably, as my main army. But I haven't played them for a very long time, so I thought it's about time I got them out again. But it's very similar to what I used to take. And what I took to this event, I mean, I don't take Dwarf Lords anyway, so that wasn't a problem. So my list was my general and sole hero was a master engineer with a rune of stone. Then in my core, I had 30 dwarf warriors with shields and full command. And I had 24 longbeards with shields and full command. That was basically my 2 anvil units. In specials, I had my 2 hammer units, which was nicely named 20 hammerers, with musician and a standard bearer and the ancestor rune. And then 25 slayers, again with the musician and standard bearer. And they were my 2 kill things units. And then for my range, I had a cannon with a rune of forging, grudge thrower with a rune of accuracy and a rune of penetrating, and an organ gun with a rune of accuracy, and I had 1 each of the copters, so I had a gyrocopter and a gyrobomber. So by only spending a sum total of 75 points on characters, I was able to get quite a lot of dwarfs on the table.
I say that's different to the usual sort of tooled up Thane with loads of runic gear that I've seen previously.
I usually find that if a block of hammers or slayers or something can't deal with something, a Thane's not going to be really able to deal with it either.
It's also usual, like I've seen a lot of dwarf players put the runesmith in the unit just for the AP, but I suppose if you're strength 6, it doesn't really make that much of a difference.
Yeah, and dwarves get the +1 strength on the charge.
Oh, yes,
So strength 7 hammerers will make a dent in most things.
So
it's handy
sorry,
for longbeards, etc. At 2,000 points, when you're trying to get enough dwarfs into each block to make them a threat, I just couldn't afford the 100 odd points it would be for a runesmith that didn't immediately die when they got into combat.
I like the idea of an engineer taking command of an entire army.
To be honest, me and Steve, it was I mean, intimidating across from Spain, but intimidating to see so many dwarfs at 2,000 points. They just kept coming, like, oh my god, there's so many dwarfs.
Because they're not that cheap, are they, dwarfs?
No, I mean every unit's over 300 points, 300 points or more.
And what was the theory behind your list then? Was it similar to castle up and shoot, or was it more combat?
It's a kind of a counterpunch list, which I think dwarfs do quite well at. You've got reasonable range stuff to whittle things down. I mean, you're never going to win a game with just a cannon, an organ gun, and a grudge thrower, but there's enough there to whittle stuff down and to try and encourage the opponent to come at you. And then you've got the 2 copters to help direct the opposing units into where you need them to be. Or you can use your longbeards or warriors to take a charge and set up counter charges with the hammers and the slayers. That's the general thing. 30 dwarf warriors, 5 wide, 6 deep, 4 up save, 5 up parry in the first round of combat if they get charged. Hopefully they'll still be steadfast. They won't run on leadership 9. And then you've got hammers or slayers ready to go into the flank. So that was the general theory. Let things sort of hit the front of the warriors or the longbeards, or get diverted around with the copters a bit, so your hammers and slayers can charge in and do what they do best.
Civil war kicking off between different dwarves, different tactics.
It was, to be honest, it was sort of playing it and talking through the list. It was just such a well-rounded list. It didn't have any big blatant weaknesses that you don't have by just inherently being a dwarf. As in, anything with an initiative test, etc., is going to hurt you. But especially, I think at level 4, at 2,000 points with maximum level 2 wizards, you're also unlikely to get even remotely dominated in a magic phase, which I think really was something else that the comp did.
Yeah, because it kind of limited the unit killing spells a little bit, because a level 4, I know it's only got an extra +2 to cast over a level 2, and if you're throwing 6 dice at it, it's not always that +2 makes a big difference, but the main difference is you've only got one mage, you've only got 2 rolls on a spell deck to get that killer spell instead of 4. So you're much less likely to come up against purple suns, etc. So that helped armies like Ogres and Dwarfs quite a lot in that respect.
That like because there's no rune of spell breaking in that list, is there?
Nope, no BSB either.
I suppose you're just happy to play the odds that it's unlikely that something like that's going to come up.
Well, the Longbeards help in that regard because they're immune psychology and they give rerolls to panic to anything within 6. So that's kind of like half a BSB there. The Hammerers have the Ancestor rune, which allows you to take a test on a single d6. So with Leadership 9 Stubborn, you know for at least 1 round if they get into combat they're going to stick or are fairly reliable in that expense. And the Slayers are unbreakable. So the BSB is not as useful in that dwarf list as it might be in other armies.
The hammer is stubborn.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, they're really upset, to be honest.
Mitigated that with unhappy dwarfs. Well, so they were the lists and the ideas behind them. So there were 3 games on the day. The first one was Meet and Engagement. The second one was Dawn Attack, and the third one was just Battle Line. So I don't know, Steve, do you want to start with what happened with your game 1?
Yes, I mean this is going into the mist of time now, but my game 1 was against Liam, who had his Ogre army, and
Big fan of the show, Liam.
if I remember correctly, and I'm sure you'll correct me if I'm wrong, I think he had 4 man-eaters with poison and sniper. He had a cat. He obviously had the iron blaster, and then he had 9 lead belchers. I think a unit of 9 bulls as well, 5 iron guts, and a bruiser BSB, fire belly, and a butcher, both on level 2s, I think. I don't remember seeing anything else. If I'm right, I might have missed something. But I think that was the main part of the army, which quite scary. Well, certainly the lead belchers were quite scary. It's 9d6 strength 4 armor piercing shots is going to make a mincemeat out of my units quite quickly. And I think the first 2 or 3 turns generally went his way. I managed to whittle down his iron guts to just 3, sorry, with the gyro bomber amazingly, and the gyrocopters dropping some stuff on them. And I killed a few of the lead belchers. But and then I managed to use a copter to slow down his bull bus because he put, I think, 2 of his characters in the bull unit, the bruiser and the butcher. And then I went into the bull unit with my Longbeards and moved up my Slayers up into the flank region, knowing that when I charged him with the Longbeards, I would probably hold the first turn and probably hold the second time as well. And then I'd have the Slayers in the flank after that. And then from, I think, turn 4 onwards, I had a turn of really good dice. He had a turn of really bad dice. And I think that by the end of it, all he had left about turn 5 was just his bulls. The warriors managed to hit the lead belchers, break them and run them down. I one-shotted the iron blaster with the cannon after he just rolled a 1 to fail to wound it, having shot it with his iron blaster. I dropped a rock on his fire belly and killed him in one go, all in the same turn.
That's a positive turn.
It was a really positive turn. I really was not expecting something like that.
That's one of
And-
those bits where it's like before I was doing all right, then after now I've lost.
Yeah. and his man-eaters went into the front of my hammerers and completely whiffed, and I think killed 5. And then I killed 3 outright on the return attacks. Ran them down, and then that put me in the flank of his Iron Guts and Bullbus as well. So yeah, it all went horribly, horribly wrong on that turn. And then after that, it was just a case of mopping up, really.
What was your secret objective?
I can't actually remember that one. I think it was stop his units from entering my deployment zone. I think I got that one, which I achieved because I took everything off. But yeah, I think it was that one.
So you prevented them from entering your deployment zone by killing them all.
Yeah. I thought that was a quite a good way of doing it.
But I think
It's a very thorough way of doing it.
successful way of doing it. Absolutely.
But yeah, I thought that it would come down to combat. I mean, the game was won in combat, not shooting. He had a couple of good rounds with the lead belchers, and then I think once they got close, he was taking off 5, 6 dwarves a turn with it, which was he halved my Slayer unit with it. But once my warriors managed to get in, they'd only lost 5 or 6 at that point. I knew I could probably break them on the charge.
Did you find the scenario with it being a meeting engagement have an impact on the game, Steve?
It didn't affect me because I didn't roll a single one, but I know his man-eaters, I think the Fire Belly and the Iron Blaster didn't turn up for Liam. The Iron Blaster wasn't a problem. It just meant that
Anywhere.
I think I went first anyway, so it just meant it couldn't get shot for the first turn, and then it just came on and shot stuff. But yeah, I think the man-eaters didn't help too much, although the way they performed in combat, then who knows what they would have done. But yeah, I think he needed to have a good stern word with them before the next game.
But after we were talking and we were just discussing scores, and I think we all had around the same sort of middling scores, and he just went, "Yeah, 19-1." Like, oh, sorry to bring that up.
Yeah, it ended up 19-1. I think I was 1 or 2 victory points away from a 20-0. So yeah, I achieved my objective. I don't think Liam achieved his, and oddly enough, I think a lot of people chose kill the general or kill the hero's objective against me, given that I had a single master engineer. But he managed to survive all 3 games. So
It's counterintuitive. Engineers know what they're doing.
yeah. They know how to make the most out of hiding behind cannons and things.
Did anything go badly wrong, or was it all just a few losses and then the dice sorted it all out?
Yeah, well, as I say, the dice were in Liam's favour the first few turns. I think when the Iron Blaster came on, I tried to shoot it with a cannon and the Grudge Thrower, and I think the cannon rolled a 1 to wound on the Iron Blaster. That turn, I think the Grudge Thrower took 2 or 3 wounds off it. But yeah, the dice weren't great, but they weren't too bad in the first few turns. It was just that middle turn when everything went well and everything went badly for Liam, and it was just one of those scenarios where it was very hard to recover from that kind of swing. So yeah, to be honest, I don't think I would have done much different had I been Liam. It was just I think I managed to sneak that game because I had more chaff, so I was able to dictate when I could charge in and get the +1 strength, which helped.
Well, that's a strong start.
Yeah, people always underestimate them in combat, and they just never let you down.
No, I mean the Longbeards against bulls when they're charging, you don't get a loads of attacks, but they're hitting on 3s and wounding on 3s, and it's only up against the parry save at that point, and they're hitting on 4s and wounding on 4s, and you're getting a 5 up and a 6 up against it. So quite easy to at least win those kind of combats. I did concentrate on the Iron Guts to start off with because I thought that was the one unit that could really do some damage. But once I'd got them down to 3, I knew that there wasn't going to be enough attacks coming back my way to really do enough damage on a unit and not get broken, unless they rolled really, really well for that particular unit.
As it turned out, he didn't.
No, well, I think the Iron Guts were kind of the unwitting losers of the completeness of failure of the Man-Eaters. So after the Hammerers went through them and overran, then they were in the flank of the Iron Gut unit, or what remained of the Iron Gut units. They didn't really have a chance. And Liam was unlucky in the fact that I think I had 2 Hammerers left by the end in that unit, which 2 more Dead Dwarfs would have gained him another 350 points or something.
Yeah, that sort of thing's just always frustrating, isn't it?
It is very frustrating, yeah. I do quite like the rule where, if you kill over 50% or 75% or whatever, you get half the points.
Yeah, it's one of those old rules from 6th, isn't it? That did carry over quite into certain comps back in the day, which I'm with you are like if you get a unit down to sort of 25% or it's fleeing, you get half victory points. It's just one of those things I like to mitigate the fact that 1 or 2 people can hold like hundreds of points.
Yeah, and it gives a more realistic reflection of how the battle actually went. Because I know in the past I've won quite big sometimes, and I've only had like 2 or 3 people in each unit, but because they're not dead, I've essentially not lost anything. And my opponent has lost whole units. Bretts are especially very good at doing that. They tend to play MSU Bretts, and I often have like 1 or 2 or 3 knights left in a unit, but they're still alive, and they're off in a corner somewhere because they've hit and broken. I've been broken, but escaped the rundown. And so it's very hard to give up points if you do that.
So that was a 19-1 victory.
It was, yeah, quite surprising.
So that's a pretty good start.
Yes, I was very happy with that start. Yeah.
Sure. So yeah, I mean my first game was the first game against Dwarfs. I played Darren with his dwarf list. Big block of Slayers. Big block of Thunderers, I think. A cannon, a grudge thrower, a gyrocopter, BSB Thane, and I think his general was an engineer. He also had a Dragon Slayer. I think it is the Slayer hero character. So unlike Steve's, like quite character heavy relatively for the points value. I want to say there was something else. Oh, an organ gun. I think there's another unit in there, but for the life of us, I can't think what it was. But I may be wrong. Meet and engagement, to be fair, worked very well in my favour. Truth be told, the cannon didn't come on turn 1, and he had a block of dwarf warriors. They also didn't come on turn 1. Also, the beauty of meet and engagement was that I could start really, really aggressively with my Kadai and Iron Demon, and just put them right as far forward as I could. So
because you're only 12 inches away from their deployment zone. Sorry, yeah.
He was essentially kind of castled in one corner. I was on the other corner, castled away as well, with the exception of my Kadai and Iron Demon, which were sort of smack bang right on the line 12 inches away from his deployment zone to get really aggressive really quick. And that, to be honest, that's kind of how the game went, truth told. I went first, took off one of his war machines with the Death Shrieker. Eventually, me Hobgoblin Khan got all the way around the back and managed to take off the Grudge Thrower. Anyway, he was an absolute star taking out artillery with these 3 strength 5 attacks. He was a hero, and obviously striking before Dwarfs is a given.
What did he have as a weapon?
Sword of Might. So he's
Oh,
running
right.
5. The guy's a hero. Quite literally. Otherwise, I mean, the massive MVP on game 1, to be honest, was the Kadai. He managed to bypass the Slayers and sort of single-handedly, I think he took out the Thunderers, the Dwarf Block, the Organ Gun, and the Runesmith or Engineer, whatever engineer he was. He was an absolute star. And unfortunately for Darren, who had genuinely horrendous dice rolls, his Slayer block failed to kill my Iron Demon, which is stunning because all of the odds should be in their favour. His last turn, second last turn, whatever it was, I managed to kill the entire Slayer block with the end of them with my Iron Demon after a long slog, and then the Iron Demon gunned down his BSP in my last turn, which was just brutal. By the end of it, he had his Grudge Thrower, and I think that was not the Grudge Thrower, sorry, the helicopter left on the table, and possibly his Dragon Slayer. And it started off with a 20-0, which was obviously a strong start.
Like if you achieved your objective then?
Yeah, mine was to not lose any of my core units. And my core units didn't do anything all game. Didn't move, didn't kill anything, didn't lose a model. They literally might as well have not been there, and I could have just played with 4 models, essentially. Could have played with the Kadai, the Iron Demon, the Death Shrieker, and the Hobgoblin hero. Everything else was sort of surplus to requirements, and the only thing I lost in the game was the Hobgoblin Wolf Rider unit of 5.
How many points is that worth?
Oh, let's check. Not many. 70 points. 70 points given up. Otherwise, quite generally things went in my favour. I didn't fail a single toughness test for the Kadai. He didn't kill the Iron Demon, which genuinely I was expecting to lose. Everything that could have went well for me went well for me, and everything that could have went poorly for Darren, unfortunately, went poorly for him. It was a really fun game. We both had an absolute blast. We had a real giggle. At one point, Darren we were laughing, and he was like, "I'm laughing on the outside, but on the inside, I'm crying." But it was a very good game. He was a very fun opponent. But yeah, everything that could have went well for me did, and unfortunately, the opposite was true for him.
I had a great game playing Darren. I think one of Graham's tournaments a few years ago, and he was playing Ogres, and just all our wizards were blowing up, and crazy stuff was happening. Like, this is the most bizarre game of Warhammer I've ever had. So that was. I'm glad he's carrying on the tradition.
Yeah, no, it was a good game. He's a fun opponent. He doesn't play a lot of Warhammer, to be fair to him. I know he plays a lot more Kings of War and 40k, I think. But it was great that he was at the event, and it was good. It was good fun.
Did you say you Khan killed most, if not all, of his artillery?
The Khan killed at least the Grudge Thrower and the cannon, I think. So I don't think my Death Shriek actually killed anything other than a gyro bomber, or no, didn't. I don't think war machines must have done anything, as memory serves. Actually, it's the Khan killed 2 bits of artillery.
And when you've got rid of that, the army's ability to reach out and damage stuff is just gone.
Yeah, and because of the scenario, it did let us have my Iron Demon and Kadai right where I wanted them, pretty much, which was in his face, aggressive, and thankfully, because his cannon didn't come on until obviously his turn 1, which meant I got a full turn of it not killing me Kadai. The because I was in combat before he could get shot, and then after that he just started churning through dwarf units with nothing that could actually really kill him.
So, is the most important moments of the game, or anything particularly memorable?
Yeah. Darren had, I think, 4 Slayers left in his turn 5 to kill the Iron Demon, which had 1 wound left. He either missed with them all or then failed to wound with them all. I then thunderstomped them all to death. He then failed to hit or wound with all of the kill and blow attacks. As that unit was wiped out, the Iron Demon then shot and killed his BSP. I think that was probably the most hilarious thing that happened all game.
It's like insult to injury, that, isn't it?
So you just couldn't have made it up, and that's why I say when his dice were poor, like they were really poor, because the Iron Demon should have died. He finished the game on 1 wound, and then they said that insult injury killed his BSB, which, yeah, I should feel bad about, but it still makes us smile.
Aggressive player.
Well, I played that first game aggressively, and it went really well. I was less aggressive as the day got on, which didn't work out as well for us, sadly.
More on that later. Anything, Steve? Any critique of Scott's super aggressive early start?
No, I think it's the way to play Chaos Dwarfs, and I think half the army with Chaos Dwarfs is really fast and aggressive, and the other half barely moves and shoots. But yeah, I'm in with Scott on the Slayers. Really should have polished off that Iron Demon.
Yeah, I felt really bad for him. The worst thing about the 20-0 win was the fact that in game 2 I had to play Steve.
Yeah, they were the 2 highest scores, weren't they? Because I certainly didn't get a 20-0.
We weren't on table 1 though. We weren't the top 2.
No, table 2.
It was table 1. Was Alan and
Andy, I think, were table 1. They
were. Right,
20-0, I think,
Andy,
as well. So,
well, my first game was appropriate enough against the Dark Elves. So at that point, I realised this is going to be quite tough, because historically, Dark Elves have the advantage against High Elves in that the way the rules interact, ASF cancels each other out, but they get hatred rerolls anyway. And they can reroll the wound, and we're not very tough anyway. So I'm just getting my excuses in at the start. So Dark Elf player had a unit of Blackguard, a repeater bolt thrower, a horde of Witch Elves, a Charybdis, a Hydra, a Cold One Chariot, Dark Shards, some Shades, a Master on a Dark Pegasus, and a Sorceress, and 5 Doomfire Warlocks. And we rolled off for meeting engagement. My Silver Helms didn't come on, and his Blackguard and his Repeater Bolt Thrower didn't come on. So the way we divided the table up, I put my archers at the back behind a marsh, thinking that'll protect it. And because I'd won the roll off, you've only got to roll a 6 to seize the initiative, so there's a 99% chance that I was going first. That's how the statistics match up, as I understand it. So I deployed as if I've got the first turn nailed on. There's literally a 1% chance of him rolling a 6. That's how it works. So I put the White Lions and the Phoenix Guard forward, either side of the marsh, with the idea that they can point at however he deploys, they can point at something, and quite far up, sort of in Scott's aggressive model, just like that. The Phoenix, I put on one side. The Phoenix Guard were on the left, next to a bit of terrain, an empty building. The Phoenix was to the left of that, with the idea that I get that as close up as possible. So if it can get an early charge off on something, it's only got a 12-inch charge to make if anything's in range. If not, it can fly up and over and into the backfield and pick a target later on. Silverhelms went on. The Reavers went on the right to sort of, I don't know. It's hard when you go on first. It's hard to, because you haven't got the advantage of knowing where. It's not what I go, you go. You've got to deploy the whole army. So it was trying to sort of work out where they might go, where the opponent might put things, and where they're most useful if I can get them around again. So the Reavers went out somewhere on the right. He counter deployed, he put his Chariot, Charybdis, and Hydra opposite the Phoenix Guard and the Phoenix. He put his Doomfire Warlocks on my left, right at the back. And then on my extreme right, he put the big block of Witch Elves, he had a unit of Harpies as well. He put Harpies in front of them. He put the Shades he put the Dark Shards behind them. He put his General Sorceress behind them. And then he put the Pegasus hero at the front, like as closest to the line as you could get. I put my Shadow Warriors behind his Sorceress because I thought, hang on, there's a 12-inch gap here. I can just shoot her and hopefully get the general straight away. So he put his Shades behind my Shadow Warriors to shoot them. So I thought, this is great. I'm in a good position here. I'll charge the Chariot with the Phoenix because that's a reasonable charge. I'll shoot the General in turn 1. I'll move the Phoenix Guard up to support the Phoenix. And the only thing I didn't like the look of was the Witch Elves were nearest to the White Lions. I didn't like that fight. So I'll worry about that later. I can shoot them with the archers. And then he rolled a 6 to go first. Like, well, that plan has just gone completely out the window, which was quite disappointing. So in the first turn, I think his Charybdis charged my Phoenix. What do you call them? The Warlocks they vanguard, then they move round to they cast, I think it was Soul Blight on the Phoenix to make it weaker. The Witch Elves sort of moved round towards the Phoenix Guard. The Harpies moved around to threaten them as well. His scouts shot at my scouts. His hero on Pegasus charged the Reavers and killed them. So it's like, this is bad. I'm penned in already. So as the battle developed, the Witch Elves charged into the White Lions. Thought, this is really bad. They're not really built for that. The Phoenix took about 2 turns to kill the Charybdis, and the Phoenix Guard ended up, I don't know if they charged or they got charged by the Hydra and then eventually the Cold One Chariot. And that was a grind as well. But it sort of turned around a bit because the Wizard managed to cast Uranus Thunderbolt. The spells I got were Uranus Thunderbolt and Harmonic Convergence. So they managed to get Uranus Thunderbolt off twice on the Pegasus character and killed him because he had a 3-up, he had a 2-up, 4-up, 2-up armor save, 4-up ward save. So he's quite hard to kill. So I was glad I got rid of him. The White Lions didn't get minced by the Witch Elves somehow. They made a lot of their 5-up armor saves quite a few times. And by this time, the Phoenix had killed the Charybdis and re-angled and then made a charge into the flank of the Witch Elves. So this is going better. They've lost Overstrikes first. They're -1 strength. They're going initiative order, but the re-rolls and that aren't coming off. And that was really putting the pressure on the White Lions, all the re-rolling with hatred and stuff like that. So they got thinned out. I'd lost, I think, half of the White Lion block. And then at that point, I'd won combat. However, he rolled a double 1 for which he needed to stay on like the second or third round. Like, right, well, that's them penned in place for another turn. Meanwhile, the Doomfire Warlocks had come back and eventually decided to charge the rear of the archers. And I thought, well, archers are usually, they generally do something outrageously good in any battle they're in. So I thought they'll be fine. And sure enough, they killed all of the Doomfire Warlocks. So eventually the Phoenix Guard killed the Hydra and the Chariot fled. The Phoenix Guard overrun to run down the Hydra, and unfortunately that catapulted them right into the full unit of Blackguard, which had just come on. So like, they're dead. They're not going to survive that. They actually won 1 round of combat and then were chopped up. So the Witch Elves are gone. The 2 big monsters are dead. The Chariot's gone. Blackguard I can't get rid of. and then I made what was probably the biggest mistake of the game, as I thought the Phoenix could probably. I wonder if it can take on that unit of Blackguard. And I think at this point it had 2 wounds left. So I shouldn't have charged it because that's worth 240 points. But I made the mistake of charging the Blackguard, which 2 turns later had killed the Phoenix. I thought, well, that's just gifting 240 points right there. But at the end, after everything was counted up, all I had left was the Archer unit with the Wizard in it. And that was it. And all he had left was the Chariot. Oh, that's right. Sorry, yeah. The fact I forgot to bring my Silver Helms on in turn 1, but because all of his units were sort of coming round onto my right flank, including his mage, who'd gone past towards into the side of past the White Lions almost towards the archers. Because I forgot to bring the Silver Helms on, I brought them in on turn 2, which meant they could get a charge, or they could threaten to charge the Wizard. So he had to focus all of his shooting onto the Silver Helms. So they died, but that gave the White Lions time to kill the Witch Elves, turn around and charge the Wizard. So I got the points for the General as well. So at the end, it was a dead tie on 10-10, but I had picked the Blood and Glory secret objective, and I'd managed to break him, and I wasn't broken. So I actually won 13-7. And it was a right grind, and it felt exactly like what a High Elf versus Dark Elf battle should be.
It sounds like a grind, to be fair. And it also sounds like your archers were once again your MVPs, as they normally are.
They always are. They always do something ludicrously good.
Never let you down, do they?
No.
Never let you down.
Charged in the rear by Doomfire Warlocks. Like, don't worry about it. Reform, kill them all. What's next?
It sounds like a good game, but a real slog.
I was saying to I was saying to the guy, you can tell how well the game's going by how many or few pictures I take. So there wasn't many because I was thinking I was under pressure from the roll. The first time he rolled that 6, I felt I'm on the back foot now, and it never let up.
I mean, just for the listeners, I'm not 100% sure that rolling a 6 is actually only a 1% chance.
It is.
Just for reference player, it's a
1% chance. It shouldn't happen.
Well, if it's a 1 in a million chance, according to Terry Pratchett, it's almost a given, isn't it? Really,
1 in a million happens 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good game, and I think a draw was the more appropriate score for the fact that everything was dead. It was the standard, time of Calador and Tethlas where everybody dies. It was like that. I
think it's also a good example of how the special secret missions impacted the result of a game.
100%. That 6-point swing, 13-7 as opposed to a 10-10. But like the theme of certainly most of the games on the day is I make a massive mistake or something goes badly wrong, and I'm scrambling trying to fix it to varying results. But when that Witch Elf unit passed its double 1, I thought, for fuck's sake, how? That shouldn't happen. That's like a 1 in 1 million chance, 2 million, double 1 when you need it.
I mean, if nothing else, everyone knows that your maths is definitely a strong point.
But I don't do math, Hammer. The White Lions end up getting shot to death, appropriately enough. And like, I'm rapidly running out of units, and he was running out of units. And like, what is left? And we're still going for it. But it was an enjoyable game. Well, it was that sounds bad that it wasn't enjoyable. It was enjoyable, but I had to think, and I was felt under pressure for the whole thing.
I think they're the games I enjoy the most, to be honest.
Yeah, where you just
really think,
where it's not just point and click.
Yeah.
But he had them. Sorry, go on.
No, I was essentially just agreeing to say that those games are just some of the most enjoyable ones for sure.
But for my instant of the game, it's the archers killing the Doomfire Warlocks, and my stupid decision of the game award was trying to kill. I got greedy. I thought, there's some more points. The Phoenix can probably do it, and he took like 3 wounds in the first turn. That was a big mistake. But what can you do? We've got to go for it because they're traitors to the true Phoenix line of Phoenix Kings. So you can't just say I want to preserve points. You've got to get rid of them.
Or followers of the rightful Phoenix King, some might say.
Well, nobody listens to them, do they?
I'm surprised you're invited back on with comments like that, Scott.
Everybody makes those comments. If I had to ban people for making comments like that, I'd have no guests at all. So that's that. And that put me on table. I can't even remember now. I think it was table 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it was table 5. The next game, playing Graham.
Oh, with his Slanesh Warrior list.
Yes. Yeah, so I can do that one if you want, or if someone else wants to do game 2.
Well, our game 2 is.
Go on.
Game 2.
You actually fought each other, didn't you? So go on. We can get the stereo version of this.
Well, for a starter, I just want to open up to say I complain to Shane because the bloody scenario. Every time I play this scenario, it just inherently upsets us.
Yeah, I was actually at the back of the room when the draw was being announced, and I didn't hear it. I just heard Scott say, "Oh no!" I thought, "Oh right, he's got me then."
Yeah. Oh, just for background as well. So I keep in touch with my wife during the event, sort of after each game, sort of just text her, etc. Before game 2, I text her, went, "Oh no, I've got Steve." She's like, "Oh, that's who you said you didn't want to play." I was like, "I know that. You don't need to remind us."
So was it the list you didn't want to play, or just the fact that it's Steve you didn't want to play?
Oh no, not the list. It was more. Steve and I obviously chat about lists a lot, etc. We'll be trying to get more games in and whatnot. So it's nice, obviously, one, it's nice for other people. 2, I have a losing record against Steve, and I didn't want to continue that trend. Which I did continue that trend. Just
Spoilers.
Yeah.
So this was Dawn Attack, wasn't it? Which is the random deployment one.
Yes.
It was, and I should say at the outset that the deployment seriously favoured me and really hampered Scott. It was horrendous.
What was it? Go on then. What was? How did you end up deployed?
Well, it basically bunkered me in the right-hand corner. I either rolled centre or right for everything. Nothing was on the left. I had basically castled up in a corner on the right-hand side, and 2 main threats. Scott's main threats, the Kadai and the Iron Demon, were on the opposite corner of the board as far away as you could possibly get them. So it was like, well, that's 3 turns before they even get close to my lines. So yes, and as Scott has alluded to previously, normal dwarf lists outshoot chaos dwarf lists just from the damage dealers, because chaos dwarfs are very good at D3 multiple wounds, lower strength kind of template. But dwarves are just slightly better at taking things off with their cannons and grudge throwers. So I knew I could probably take off his war machines before he could take mine off, and then I could turn around and deal with the threats that were coming from the other side of the board. So I must admit, after deployment, I thought it favoured me heavily just on the way the dice fell on the deployment, which was very lucky for me and very unfortunate for Scott, which put him right up against it from before dice had been rolled in anger, I suppose.
And how did that feel, Scott, on the other side?
To be honest, everything was getting set up with that. I'd let those 2 things were the last things I rolled for. Were they the last things I rolled for, Steve? Either way, when one of them landed on there, I think it was the Kadai first, we started laughing about it.
Yeah.
And then it was like, it'd be perfect if you could roll that again for your Iron Demon, or whichever way around it was. And then I did. I was like, oh, you son of a bitch! And then unfortunately, Steve got first turn and killed my cannon, killed my Death Shrieker, which was the only threat I had to take off any of his war machines. Or more, I mean, irrelevant the other war machines, mainly the cannon, to then try to save my Kadai's life, to get him out from hiding behind a building, which is where he started. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. So my Death Shrieker died. And then once the Kadai got round, Steve even had the spare turn to move his cannon before shooting it. Three, which is just it was like
that's just an insult. That
I know, because I had a building in between where the cannon was, because of where I'd rolled it. It had to go either behind the building or to the side of the building. I put it to the side so I could shoot across most of the board. But where the Kadai was, it was hunking around that building, so I had to move it around the building so I could shoot past it. So I had to spend the time moving the cannon. And I had that much spare time to leg it round. I could do that.
That's how far away the Kadai was from everything else.
just don't need to shoot this turn.
No,
It's beneath me.
He's just taking the turn off, like, I can have another round.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, and I could, and I did sportingly. I felt destroy my grudge throw. I think the first turn.
no, I mean, to be honest, I appreciated it.
Yeah, I thought it was only fair as I'd shut your rocket off. I thought I'll swap it for the grudge throw. They're going to go for a few beers. They're friends, really.
Were your combat blocks facing each other, or was everything in the opposite corners?
Oh no, most of my stuff was in the center to the left, so relatively across from one another, with the exception of my two main threats, which were miles away on the right-hand side of the board.
Did the Kadai actually get across the board?
No, don't be ridiculous. He got cannoned off the board in Steve's turn 3.
Yeah, because he came within range of an organ gun and the cannon.
Organ gun only took one wound off him, and then the
Yeah.
cannon was like, "Hold on, boys, I've got this." Like,
Yeah,
hold me pace, I'll be back.
they'd packed enough powder from having to just shift it around the building the previous turn.
So it meant we unfortunately didn't get to see how a Kadai faces versus a block of Slayers, which is a shame, obviously. And I fancy the Kadai's chances against that rather than facing down a cannonball.
Yeah, the evidence backs that up.
Yeah, but what was also proven was that a block of Slayers, and certainly combine them with a block of Hamras, is comfortably enough to deal with a Iron Demon.
That bited as well.
Didn't last long.
Oh yeah, it got murdered in combat off 2 blocks of great weapon wielding dwarfs.
Because dwarfs the Slayers always wound on a 4, so the toughness 8 was negated largely.
Oh dear.
Yeah, to be honest, the Iron Demon was. I've been relatively okay as it was grinding down the Hamras, just because it was still 6s to wound. So
Yeah, I was only taking a wound off a turn, I think, with the
it
hammers.
yeah, and then I was just happily sort of thunder stomping them away. Iron Demon's unbreakable. It would have been a relatively close call who would eventually won the grind, but I think it was probably been the Iron Demon's favour.
Yeah, it definitely would have been.
But then the Slayers came in and were having absolutely none of my bollocks, and I'd obviously heard stories in the Book of Grudges about what Darren's Slayers had not managed to achieve, so went in there and absolutely showed me Iron Demon how it was supposed to be done.
What were your Infernal Guard and that doing at this point?
Nothing. Staying out of range of the organ gun.
Yes, they didn't want to advance into my Rune of Accuracy engineer manned organ gun.
Yeah, not fancy being hit with all of that gunfire that was hitting on a 3, essentially killing on a 3.
So they went for self-preservation over helping their friends.
Well, yeah. And to be fair, once things started relatively badly for us, I went into a bit of preservation mode.
I was going to ask, was that more you're trying to keep the points rather than?
I mean, not wholly. It would have just been the Chaos Dwarf list. I had 2 units, and to move them forward into the organ gun without the organ gun having any alternative threat to have to think about would have just been relative suicide. It would have just been throwing points away. They were never going to achieve anything in that matchup.
So what happened after everything was killed then? Or was it just stand around and wait for the timer to run out?
Steve and I were close to setting... We got through all 6 turns. I think we were close to setting a record for 6-turn game.
Yeah, I mean, most of it was a combat between a gyrocopter and the magma cannon, where they just basically refused to kill each other. I think there was about 8 or 10, 8 rounds of combat, and I think I killed one crew.
Your last turn? The gyrocopter in combat, which I had to charge something into to finish it off?
Yeah, you had to charge a block of fire glaives into it.
The magma cannon was in combat from... Was it your turn 2, Steve? It was in combat from...
Yeah, it was. Yeah, turn 2.
Copter.
Yeah.
And it stayed locked in that combat for...
Till turn 6.
Till turn 6. The magma cannon did absolutely nothing as well. It was not a good time.
The copter didn't only killed one crew out of, I don't know.
Yeah, oh, yes. I mean, your rules for
20 strength 4 attacks, and it killed one crew.
I would say it's made its points back there, then just disabling that for the entire game.
Well, it got to the stage where I preferred it to have lost and died so I could cannon them. Because my cannon was sat there going, I've got nothing to shoot. But yeah, it was crazy, that combat. It was just complete failure on both sides.
I did manage to fail a lookout for me general at one point, I think, didn't I?
Yes, you did, but you passed your ward save. Yeah. And that wasn't a deliberate snipe shot either. It's just you'd presented your flank to my cannon, so I thought, I'll just send a cannonball down that.
Or BSB. Well, I failed a lookout, sir, anyway. One of them failed a lookout, sir. BSB, I think it might have been with hindsight. But the Wizards did nothing because nothing was in range for the entire game. So
Soul blighted the copter a couple of times, but still didn't do anything.
Yeah, he soul blighted the gyrocopter. But it was a good game. I think it went the way we both were expecting it to go. For the most part, of sort of how it played out how we expected to, and it finished on points as a 12-8. But I failed.
Yeah, I think so.
I failed my objective, and Steve succeeded on his. So we swung from a 12-8 to a 15-5.
Which is another example.
Yeah. What was your objectives, just out of interest?
Oh, well, I got lured in by trying to kill Steve's character and failed miserably.
See, everyone
from across the board.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. Well, obviously, I was kind of hoping to get my Kadai in amongst these lines, which obviously didn't happen. Or then have him soak in damage while me Iron Guard, me Dwarfs move forward with me caster in, and then try for a cheeky death snipe, which also didn't happen.
It's a cunning plan to try and lure people into trying to kill the unkillable Master Engineer.
Well, I mean,
he's always right at the back.
I love it.
What was your objective, Steve?
Not to lose any of my core units, because I thought they're probably not going to get into combat anyway, so I'll just keep them. They did play hop in and out the building for a while, just to keep things interesting.
All I'm getting here is I killed everything that was in range, then just ran out the clock with things to do.
Well, by the time I'd fought off his chaff that was trying to hunt down my organ gun, so I had my core units trying to block off charge lanes with his nifty 18-inch hobgoblin hero. By the time he had gone, and the Kadai and the Iron Demon were pretty much dealt with, that was like turn 3 or something. And even if I'd marched everything forward, I don't think I would have got much. I wouldn't have been able to be in charge range by the time I got there, because Dwarfs are only movement 3. So it was kind of like, well, yeah, I can't reach you. He couldn't reach me. So let's see who wins on the mighty gyrocopter magma cannon fight.
That's it. I mean, that was the combat to end all combats.
Yeah, I think we would still be rolling dice now here today if it was not limited to 6 turns. Yeah.
Oh, But no, what it did show, and I liked, despite the fact that it went sort of not in my favour, was the power of achieving the secret missions, which I think really gave this comp a really interesting edge.
Yeah, because it was something you really had to think about. Because you didn't just have 3; I think you had 5, didn't you? So you had to really think who you're playing, what your tactics were going to be, what was the likelihood of achieving one of those 5. And it made it's made a big difference in both my first 2 games. I'm not going to spoil it by saying if it made a difference in the last one or not. I'll wait till we get there. But yeah, I really liked that. It kind of gave a little bit of an edge.
I was saying at the time, I don't know who to support because I want the Chaos Dwarfs to win, but no offense, I wanted Scott to lose. Yeah, so I was morally tied there about who to support.
But yeah, it was a fun game. Given that Scott was very hampered before dice had been rolled, just on the deployment.
It seems on the flat score before the objectives are added that it, for all the damage being done, what was it, 13-7, did you say?
It was 12-8.
12-8.
Yeah.
So that's quite close still.
To be fair, Steve only lost his the 2 helicopters, the bomber and the helicopter, and his grudge thrower, which he kindly blew up just to give us a bit of a helping hand after how rude he'd been previously.
Just trigger the self-destruct there out of sympathy.
I lost the Death Shrieker, the Wolf Riders, the Hobgoblin Hero, the Kadai, and the Iron Demon. So the vast majority of our armies essentially just sort of looked at one another from almost just a millimetre over 30 inches apart.
That's how it is with dwarfs, though. It's just combat comes a lot later, if at all.
Yeah, it did highlight the problem with dwarfs and tournaments, in that if you need to push for a 20-0, it's very hard to do that with dwarfs, because unless you've got either a full-on sort of vanguarding or scouting army that can really get close in quickly, or you've got a full-on gun line and you're fairly confident of being able to shoot a lot of units off completely. If people don't want to come and engage, and it's very similar with Chaos Dwarfs as well, I think if they don't want to come and engage you and just stand off, it's very hard to get that 20-0, which you need to do well in tournaments. I think they're very good at getting solid wins in anything from sort of 13-7, 17-3. They're good at getting those kind of wins. But if you need to push for bigger ones to try and get further up the table, then it's very hard. It's harder with dwarfs than a lot of other armies.
Well, that grudge was settled then in your second game. You can score that one out.
That's it. 1-1 in me civil wars versus other dwarfs for the day.
Yeah, vengeance was taken quite quickly on that one.
It was very quickly. Yeah.
Well, my second game, as I mentioned before, was against Graham's Slanesh Chaos Warriors of Chaos army, which I have played before, or a version of it before when we were practicing. So I sort of knew what was coming. So the game Dawn Attack, where you roll a dice, or on a 1 you deploy on the left, on a 2 you deploy on the right, 3 to 5 it's in the middle, and 6 it's anywhere. So he run the roll off, so he rolled first. So on my left he put his hang on, I'll tell you what he had first. He had a unit of Slanesh Chaos Warriors. I think they're a unit of Chosen. I don't know Warriors that well. He had a Chimera, he had a Hell Cannon, he had a unit of Forsaken, he had a unit of, are they Seekers they're called? The Slanesh Cavalry. Hellstriders. And in there he had his Wizard, and he had a hero character in with the Chaos Warriors as well. Where was so Chimera, Hellstriders, Cannon, Forsaken. Yeah, so On the opposite my left, he had when he rolled for deployment, he got the Warriors and the Chosen pretty much next to each other. And then more towards the middle, you had the Forsaken in a small line there. Right at the back, at the center, he put the Hell Cannon, and then the Hell Striders were also in the center, a bit in front of that. And then he rolled for the Chimera all the way on opposite my right side. So, well, that's interesting. The Chimera is nowhere near, because I personally hate Chimeras. I think they're awful. Anyone complaining about a Phoenix just doesn't know anything about it when you compare it to a Chimera, because they, again, never fail their regen save. And they've got that breath weapon which kills everything, in my experience anyway. So the only downside of them is their low leadership, which will become important later on. So when I rolled, I got on the extreme left, I got the Phoenix Guard and the Phoenix together, so that's going quite well. In the middle, I got the block of archers and the Reavers and the Bolt Thrower. And then all the way out on the right by themselves with the BSB was the unit of White Lions. So that was, I thought, bollocks. He's nowhere near where all the action is, because everything was on my left. The Phoenix Guard and the Phoenix facing off against the Chosen, the Warriors, and the Forsaken. And in the middle was like the fast cavalry who could support that. Oh, sorry, and the Silver Helms were in the center, in front of, so moved up in front of the repeater Bolt Thrower. So how are you going to get the White Lions across the table to make a difference? Because the Phoenix Guard can, as was discussing before, they're good at holding, but can they really take on a unit of Warriors, Chosen, Forsaken, Hell Striders whilst getting blasted by the cannon? As I assume that was what would happen. So, right, we'll try and sort that out. So I lose the roll off to go first. So he moves these Hell Striders sort of in front of my archers. The Chimera flies up sort of mid-table. The Forsaken charge my Phoenix, and they make it. So he's in combat in turn one, so he's hamstrung there. And the Chosen sort of move up towards the Phoenix Guard, and the Warriors sort of tilt to go more towards the Phoenix in the middle. So in my turn one, I think it was my turn one, I make the genius decision to charge into the unit Hellstriders with my block of archers. I don't know why I thought this was a great idea. My theory was they're always strikes first. The Hellstriders aren't that well armored. I'm likely to be steadfast, so even if I lose, I can pin them, and either the Phoenix or the White Lions perhaps can get them the next turn. The combat doesn't go great. I don't kill enough Hellstriders to knock to give me steadfast and him not to have steadfast. So I've lost by quite a lot, fail, and the archers and general and wizard are all killed. So this is another one of something going catastrophically wrong at early game and having to recover from it for the rest of the game. So that was quite annoying, but I can't blame anyone but myself.
Yeah.
So I think, right, how am I going to get out of this? I've got to get the White Lions across. I've now got no magic support. So it was just a question of killing in order things that were a threat or that were the biggest threat. So the Chimera had moved to mid-table. So I thought, I'll risk it with the Silver Helms to charge the Chimera and see if I can win by a point. It's only got leadership, whatever. Fortunately, they do. They manage to wound it a bit, and they win combat, and it breaks, and they run it down. So they sort of moved up, overran it to head towards the cannon. The Hellstriders decide to come back on themselves and threaten the repeater bolt thrower. And in the meantime, he's casting, has it acquiescence or something on the Phoenix, which means it can only move random movement D6. So it's sort of knackered. It does kill the Forsaken, but it's now being. I can't get it to where I want it to go because it can't now fly. It's only got movement of D6, so that knackers him for a bit. So luckily, the White Lions come around this building that was on their flank, and because he hits the repeater bolt thrower with the Hellstriders and overruns, but not far enough, they are still in charge arc of the flank of the Hellstriders. So the White Lions make their charge in there, into their flank, by which time the Phoenix has killed the Forsaken, come off acquiescence, turned around, and it goes into the front of the Hellstriders. And that just blends them into nothing, that combination. So with that, I've killed his big unit fast cavalry and the wizard. So now we're even on magic. So I'm not getting bombarded with magic anymore. The White Lions then sort of move up toward the next target for them is going to be the Hell Cannon because it's the nearest one I can get them to. So the repeater bolt thrower and the Hell Cannon are sort of right at the back on opposite ends. So they start moving towards the Hell Cannon. Meanwhile, I've got some what they're called Shadow Warriors who don't really do anything. They just move towards the Hell Cannon. They don't really get involved in the battle. Sorry, I've made a mistake. At the start of the game, he charged his Forsaken into my Reavers, killed them, and overran at the Phoenix. That's how he managed to do that. So that was unexpected. But anyway, so the Warriors are sort of trying to head towards the Phoenix before it charged the Hellstriders. So they've come apart there, and he tries to angle it. So if the Phoenix Guard were to charge the Warriors, because the Warriors now have an exposed flank of the Phoenix Guard, but the Chosen are right behind them. So if the Phoenix Guard went in and don't manage to break them, they would get flanked immediately by the Chosen. But I think I'm running out of time here. I've got to go into the side, whatever. I'll just trust that the Phoenix Guard can do it. Unfortunately, they do break the Warriors. They don't overrun them. They do get away, but their pursuit move takes them out of the arc of the Chosen, which is really quite handy. By this time, I can get the Phoenix back to the left-hand side. The Warriors rally, the Phoenix Guard charge them again, and this time do they kill them all? Yeah, I think they did. That's why they kill them. But they also get charged from the back by the Chosen. At that point, I thought, well, I've lost the Phoenix Guard, but they don't actually die. They hold, reform, they make a load of ward saves. And by this point, the White Lions have killed the Hell Cannon. They've come across to where the Phoenix Guard are fighting the Chosen. And at this point, the Phoenix has also come across to help out. So in the end, he's got the Phoenix Guard in the front, the White Lions in the side, and the Phoenix in the back of his last unit, and that just finishes them all off. So in the end, there's nothing left of the chaos, and that my objective was to kill all of his characters. So at the end, that was an 18-2, and I was exhausted after that.
Was that? Did you find that quite a taxing?
Because I fucked up at the start, and because of the way everything was deployed. Yes, it's like, right, there's about 8 different problems here that you've got to solve, and how the hell are you supposed to do it? And the way I managed to do it is by, like springboarding the White Lions from one combat to the next to get them across the board. And it worked out, but it easily couldn't have. It easily could have gone the other way.
How did that? What was your secret mission?
It was to kill all these characters. So that's why I was focusing on. I knew I had to kill that unit of Hellstriders because it's the mage and it's 50% of his characters. So pinning them down or capitalizing on. Graham said afterwards, he shouldn't have gone into the bolt thrower because it held them there for one more turn, and he didn't realize the White Lions actually had an arc on them. So that helped me out, and then heading back up towards killed the Hell Cannon. The Hell Cannon didn't do anything until I think the second to last turn, where it killed like half the white lions. But at that point, it didn't really matter because the next turn it charged in, killed the hell cannon. They turned around, pointed towards what the only unit left, which were already engaged with the pinned in by the Phoenix Guard and the Phoenix, and then that was the end. So the White Lions managed to get in the entire game from one side of the table all the way to the other side. But it was a good game.
And I wasn't sure. I must have missed it. Apologies. Well, how did that one finish then for you?
That was 18-2, including the objectives.
Did Graham? I assume Graham failed on his objective, did he?
Yes, he didn't get his.
Right.
I can't remember what his was.
15-5. Sort of swung
Yeah.
up 18-2.
And that's because I lost that block of archers with the general in it. So there's 300 and odd points for that, 100 and something points the character, plus 100 for the general. That was a big mistake. You just look like, right, so the entire center of my army is now gone. I've just got like a right and a left and nothing attaching it in the middle.
Nothing in between.
Good work.
Yeah, good hustle, guys. Good hustle.
It's like the chimeras, though. Like, I've got to kill them. Got to kill them early on. So that's what the Silver Helms. That was lucky. That
I suppose it's the same way that most people do with the Frost Phoenix, isn't it? It's one of those things that just gets targeted immediately.
And you can use that to your advantage, really, if you try to sneak things through while people are focused on the big monsters. But the way it worked, it was like two fights on the same board. Like there was the left hand side and the right hand side didn't have anything to do with each other until the very end of the game. And the BSB was on the wrong side. So, but I was quite pleased how I recovered from that, because when he ran down, you just get this sense of dread, like you've badly miscalculated, you're not steadfast, you're down by 5 points, you're going to fail. The BSB's miles away. Roll, dead. Roll, cut down. Like, oh no, horrible feeling that in the pit of your stomach, like you've made a massive mistake.
Yeah, and just on an aside, worth sort of pointing out, Graham came tied with Nicky for best painted army, and it was a lovely.
Oh, his army's stunning,
isn't it? Yeah, I mean, as armies always are.
Yeah, and he's got customized heads and things for the chosen, and they're all like sort of pseudo Greeks and stuff. They're really nice.
Really deserve to be dead by the hands of high elves.
Yeah, well, we don't make excuses for that.
It does sound like the White Lions got a record for the amount of distance covered in one battle, mine.
Yeah. I think they made, what was it? They needed something like a 9 to get into the Hellstriders, and they rolled a 6. Like, yeah, we're in. And then there was one turn. The one turn of the out of combat was where they got shot. And then, right, we're into the cannon. And now we've destroyed the cannon. We turn around. Now we're into the side of the chosen. Like, yeah, just catapult yourself across. But again, it's I wasn't really. It's not really tactics as such. It's just relying on the high elf elite infantry. The Phoenix Guard did what they're all right and hitting on the side. So there was no parry from the warriors, and they're still 3 ranks deep. And they can still do some damage and not take some back. So they fair enough. You might be expected to win that, but it's just holding things. It's just being able to pin things in place until the big damage dealers can get there, and they did it. That they held. If the Phoenix Guard had been killed, it would have been a totally different story. Because
I think they're one of the best units to do that. Of like pin things down, Phoenix Guards. Like they're just such an excellent unit on the grind because of that 4-up ward.
Yeah, you can't get rid of them if the odds are all right. And just being hit, when I got hit in the back, I thought, well, they've done the job. They've slowed this flank up enough. The White Lions are here now, and the Phoenix is still alive. And like, no, we're not going anywhere. We're turning around. Like, oh, great. The Syrians took notice of this one. But I felt bad for, well, not bad, but like, if you're ahead in the start of the game, like, yeah, I'm on top of this, and then like, oh no, everything's now going wrong. That's what it must have been like for Graham, because he capitalized on my mistake at the start. He had magic superiority. He reasonably thought that the White Lions couldn't get into the Seekers at that range. So Seekers, Hellstriders at that range. And they're like, no, they can. Now they're going for the cannon. And just,
spoke Graham a few times throughout the events, and he was just not raging, but just infuriated with how rubbish these Hellstriders performed. Really nice models, and obviously they're painted fantastically, but I think every game they just massively underperformed for them.
but they've only got something like a 5-up save, haven't they? They're not.
Yeah, they're really rubbish.
It's just a unit of fast cav, really, that wants to fight but can't.
But all his use of magic is exactly correct. Immobilize the Phoenix, charge into it with stuff you're not bothered about. There's a turn where it's not doing what it wants to do. Acquiescence, so it can't. It's not going to hit anything. And then it's like, which way do I point it? Do I point it this way or do I point it that way? Because 6 inches either way at maximum, it's not going to make that much of a difference.
Mesh magic is excellent as well.
Yeah, it's really, really good. And especially because I'm low leadership, relatively low leadership. My general's dead, so it's all unit leadership. And the banner is miles away. So,
hold on a second. I mean, I appreciate Steve and I played Dwarfs, but are you actually trying to claim that high elves you would classify as low leadership?
I know. I was going to say you should try playing a few tournaments as goblins.
That's exactly what I was thinking. You might want to try playing a game as just Empire, and just
or Ogres,
lower than what I'm used to. How about that?
Oh, tell you what, you high elf players.
I took a leadership 7 general to Cardiff when I went.
Yes, you did. Yeah.
All right, don't have to show off about it. I play the lowest leadership army.
I said low, but do you mean it goes lower than an 8? It doesn't understand.
It was very weird having a leadership 8 general. Leadership what? That's standard leadership, isn't it? Spearman's leadership 8. But yeah, that was like a game in just pure damage limitation and recovery, and it worked out, but it so easily might not have.
Yep. And once again, I assume a very fun game to play. One would assume.
It was for me. I don't think it was for Graham by the end.
I mean, these things happen as well. I don't like it. At the end, it's a dice game, and dice are inevitably going to let you down at some point.
I think this is more. I can't really complain about the dice. It's more making a big mistake and then having to recover from it. Right. And that cost me big because if I'd shot them, they wouldn't have been steadfast if they charged, probably. And I wouldn't have lost the general, and I wouldn't have lost the big unit, and I'd be. I mean, this is would have hammer, but maybe I would have been a 20-0 there. But there you go. That's not how it happened.
Hindsight is a wonderful thing. And it's things like that you learn from and make you a better player.
Exactly. There's the positive out of it. Scott always putting people down. Right? You see the.
Good Lord, that's what a rude thing to say. I'm nothing if not a man of positivity. I'm a veritable ray of sunshine.
But yeah, that was quite a big win-ish, and that put me on table 2 for the dramatic finale. So I'm going to do mine game 3 now because it's a sad ending. So I don't want to talk about it very much.
Get it out the way.
Get it out the way.
Then you can enjoy the rest of the show.
Yeah, and just sit back and relax. So game 3, I was paired off against another Warriors of Chaos army, but this was it was Barry's Warriors, but these were multi-god ones. It wasn't just a mono-god. And I think I overheard Shane say after, if I had a 20-0 this, I'd have won, which just made me depressed. I was that close. Well, not that close, but it was theoretically possible that I could have won the whole thing.
It was a nasty list, was Barry's. To be fair, it was a very nasty looking list at 2,000 points.
Well, he was a good player.
Warriors, yeah,
he used it well as well. But anyway, this is just pure battle line. So most of the drops went on my right-hand side. So the archers next to a building right at the back. The white lions were to the left of them. Then there was a bit of terrain, like a building. On the other side, that was the Phoenix Guard. Then sort of in the middle to the left were the Silver Helms, and right on the left-hand side were the Reavers. The Shadow Warriors were deployed on the opposite side of the board on my right-hand side, and they just got ignored. I forgot all about them. And then he had, it was a unit of Slaanesh Chaos Warriors, a Gore Beast Chariot, not what they're called. They're not called Juggernauts. What they're called in the Warrior.
Skull Crushers.
Skull Crushers.
Skull Crushers. So I had 6 Skull Crushers. He had a...
Skull Crushers.
Yeah, 6 of them.
Oh,
Yeah, that's just nasty.
it's just outrageous, isn't it?
Imagine taking strong units to it. What's he on about? He had a Chimera, which I hate. He had a...
I don't think I've heard you say that.
I occasionally bring it up. He had an undivided character wizard thing with Shadow. He had a unit of Chaos Trolls, I think 6 of them. What else did he have? And he had the BSB Zinch character on disc. So my thought is, well, the White Lions will go opposite the Chaos Ogres because they've got Banner of Eternal Flame. They'll hit them, they'll go through them, get to the Chaos Warriors behind them because that's where the magic is and where a lot of the points are, as I assume. That was my plan. Oh, he had a non-Gorbeast chariot next to the Ogres. So the Phoenix, he goes first. So that gets, the Phoenix gets charged by the chariot, and that is another of those battles that just goes on forever. I think it was 2 or 3 turns it was tied up there. I can't make the charge into the trolls first because it's too long a charge. So they go in turn 2 with the White Lions. The Disco Lord sort of flies into the mids table. So I thought, well, I'll take a punt at this. I pretty much guess it's going to be the...
Are you sure you had 6 Skull Crushers?
I thought you had 6. Unless you had 5. Should I check the photos?
You check your photos.
Sorry, yes, he did have 5.
Yeah, because 6 would have been wildly cheating, and I don't think that would have washed.
No, he definitely had 5. Sorry, my mistake. He did have 5.
You can cut that bit out.
Yeah, I'll edit the back out. So I'll just say 5, and I'll edit that over the top every time I said 6. Yeah, 5. As I was always saying, 5 Skull Crushers. Where was I? So anyway, yeah. So the Disco Lord flies sort of in front of the Silver Helms. So I thought he's probably going to have this 3-up rerollable ward save, but I've had it before where people have just bluffed that. So I thought, well, I'll go for it. So I charged the Silver Helms into the front of him and the Reavers into the side. I thought, if you can kill this in with combat rays or whatever, great. Otherwise, these chaff units aren't really going to do much against this lift because it could hold up and stuff. But I thought, oh, whatever, I'll go for it. They win combat, I think, the first round, but he holds. And they do a wound, which he then heals in the next turn from Soul Feeder or something like that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, so he does have the 3-up rerollable, so it's very impossible to wound that. The Skull Crushers attempt to charge the Phoenix Guard in the second turn, and they fail the charge. But I thought, well, the Phoenix Guard are now sort of isolated, so they're either going to have to charge them or they're going to get charged themselves. So they charge in, and this is where I start to notice that they can wound reasonably enough, but -1 AP on a 1-up armor save is not good enough. And the saves he was rolling, like, I don't think the Phoenix Guard did a wound in 3 rounds of combat because he made every save. Like, bloody hell. So anyway, the Chimera flies across. I thought the Chimera was going to... I don't know what I thought it was going to do, but it flew in front of the archers, sort of behind the White Lions in front of the archers. It charged into them. Did they win? Or no, they were steadfast, so it didn't do enough damage. But in the next turn, he used the fiery breath, and they broke and ran. So the general's gone, and the mage is gone.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that was a good move. The White Lions are trying to get into the Chaos Warriors because they've killed the Ogres. That's not a problem, one turn. They killed the Ogres. Sorry, Trolls, not Ogres. They killed the Chaos Trolls, and they're sort of going towards the Chaos Warriors. He's backing off, and he miscasts Miasma on them for the big version. So miscast that, rolls a 3 for D3 to minus all stats. So they've now movement 2, and that charge becomes unlikely. And now I'm be weapon skill 2. So I'll be hitting on 5s, wounding on 2s, and then in return, my initiative's down as well. So I wouldn't be going at the same time or first. So like this charge is becoming a lot more dangerous. He rolls a 4 for the miscast result, and only think 5 warriors die in Dimensional Cascade, and he doesn't go into the warp. And then he does the same thing again the next turn, so that the White Lions are like they can't move. So in the meantime, this Phoenix kills the chariot, I think, and then it gets hit in the side by the Disco Lord, who's killed all the cavalry at this point, because it was either do it on the first turn or it's not going to happen. And then it's just a grind. So the Phoenix Guard get ground down because they can't. Well, they can wound, but they keeps making the save. The White Lions get Enfeebling Foe, and because I've got no magic defense anymore, just Enfeebling Foe and miscast Miasma. So they're sort of going towards the unit of warriors. The Phoenix gets killed by the Lord on Disc. So all that's left really is the White Lions, and then they get hit by the Gorby's Chariot and the Warriors in one turn. And because they've got Miasma on them, they just can't hit, and they all die. And then I thought, oh, I've been tabled here, great. But as it turned out, I'd forgotten about the Shadow Warriors, so I wasn't tabled, so that's a moral victory.
That's a sneaky tactical play.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you forget about them,
something alive.
and then your opponent says, oh, your Shadow Warriors are still here. I'm like, yeah, that means
I knew
I
that
win.
all along.
Yeah, that was the long game I was playing. So all I managed to kill was, I think I killed 1 or 2 Juggernaut. What are they called?
Skull Crushers.
Skull Crusher. I can never remember that. 1 or 2 Skull Crushers and the unit of Chaos Trolls. And in return, I lost everything apart from the Shadow Warriors. But since the Shadow Warriors are the most important part of the army,
Moral victory.
Yeah, moral victory, 100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. They are the unit that's closest to Dark Elves after all, so
Well, they hate Dark Elves, so they should survive.
there's a thin line between love and hate.
Becoming the thing you hate. But I was destroyed, but it was a good game, and I learned what the weaknesses. It really exposed what the weaknesses of this build was, and he's a really nice guy to play. So, and when he was making all these saves, like, I don't know what to tell you. Yeah, made all your saves again. So I don't think I hope I didn't come off as salty in the game, because I didn't. As much as you can enjoy watching your army get destroyed and everything you try and getting counterplayed, which is, it's good. It's just good play. Getting that 2 miscasts on Miasma, rolling the maximum 3, total magic domination, getting Enfeebling Foe off on the White Lions. So when they hit that was it. When they hit the Chaos Warriors, they're only strength 4, so they're only wounding on 4s, hitting on 4s, wounding on 4s, and then they had halberds, so they weren't getting their armor saves. So it was the same back, but with no armor saves, and it wasn't a happy end for the High Elves. Yeah, so he won, I lost. I can accept that. It's not as fun when you're getting crushed, but that's the way it goes.
Really nice guy and a really good player, though.
Really good, yeah, really good player. He played his army so well, and because I don't know if you say this as like a sop to people. He said, "I don't think you did anything wrong. It's just the way it went." He got them 2 miscasts off, which were critical, and he played his army really well. And as I was saying before, it exposed what was wrong with the army, or what the weaknesses of the army were.
So my last game I played Damien, and his Ogres list, which lots of wild things happened in the game. To be honest, it was a really excellent game. And I had to sort of apologise for doing. I seemed to go a little bit dice blind halfway through the game, where I just couldn't. Like, he was rolling dice. I just couldn't read what he was rolling. It was awful. So again, apologies for that. But we had quite a wild game, to be honest. A real game of two halves where, to be fair, I made a couple of really glaring errors with hindsight, but like, really good game. So we started, and I must sort of throw the caveat that Chaos Dwarfs versus Ogres is a good matchup for Chaos Dwarfs because everything does multi-wound.
What was he playing?
He was playing Ogres.
Ogres.
Sorry, did I say Dwarfs?
I can't remember.
Fine. So yeah, Ogres Chaos Dwarfs. It's a good matchup for Chaos Dwarfs historically, and it started really well for the Chaos Dwarfs overall. It was one of the very few games where I actually cast a spell. So I managed to put Doom and Darkness on his gut bust with his general in. So -3 LD, general only in LD 7 anyway, so down to 4. I then proceeded to move the Iron Demon up and essentially wipe the unit out, barring 2 and the general, which was a Fire Belly. Obviously at LD 4, even with a reroll, he ran and proceeded to run off the board, which was an incredible start to the game. I hit his Iron Blaster with my Death Shrieker. Bang on. Roll a wounds. Oh no, it didn't wound. Apologies, I rolled a 1 to wound. So that was a sad thing. And it was even sadder when in the Ogre turn 1, because of a poor bit of deployment from myself, he not only killed my Death Shrieker in return, but I, for the second game in a row, failed to look out, sir, and he killed my general with 1 cannon shot, which frankly, I suppose after what I did to his general's unit in turn 1, I really deserved. We then had the next 2 turns of just Chaos Dwarf domination, where I essentially killed everything barring his BSB and his Unit 4 Mournfang. But in his turn 2, I think essentially it was, he got his Mournfang into combat. They never got out of combat, so I couldn't shoot them, and they then proceeded to almost kill everything they touched, which was just awful to watch and be part of, but we had a good laugh about it. It was fun. And his BSB with the Dragon Helm or Dragonbane Gem over the course of 4 rounds of combat unfortunately killed my Kadai through unstable, doing 1 wound a turn. And then beat
I do remember him being very proud of that.
He was very proud of it. I think to be fair, he had a real good giggle at it, because he charged in to the Kadai with his BSB and a couple of bulls. Kadai tore apart his bulls and then proceeded to have to get through a 2-up ward save of its flaming attacks, whilst he managed to slowly kill the Kadai. And I think it was my last turn or his last turn. Took it down to 1 wound and it crumbled. Lost combat. So it was losing combat by 1 every turn. So essentially lost over 3 turns, taking 1 wound, 1 for combat res, give or take. Or he was doing no wounds and it was taking 1 on combat res for being a BSB. It was an incredibly brutal game. From where it was on turn 3, it should have been a strong win for the Chaos Dwarfs. And to be honest, I misplayed versus the Mournfang, and Damien really sort of made us pay for it. No excuses. Poor play by me, good good play by him to get them in combat, keep them there. I also then, for some unbeknownst reason, forgot that my Castellan BSB gives my Fireglaive unit stubborn. And I don't have any excuse for it other than an absolute moment of madness. And with that in mind, didn't take them into the Mournfang. And if I had have taken them in, I think they would have won the grind in the long run. But no, stupidly, I forgot that they weren't stubborn and thought, oh, they're just going to break, run off, blah, blah, blah. But at the end, it was a really brutal match. Damien finished with just his Mournfang alive and his BSB on a unit of 10 Noblars. And I finished the game with the Iron Demon alive, BSB, and unit of Chaos Dwarfs. And it finished 10-10. A draw. We both failed, or we both succeeded in our mission. So it stayed 10-10. It was a really good way to end the day, and the fact that it was a very fun game. Played in a really good ethic. It swung one way, then the other. I generally thought, to be fair to Damien, he was ready to pack up after 3 turns. But he soldiered on, and we got a draw at the game. It was a hell of a game to finish on. Cost us any chance of finishing further up, which was both a shame and, I think, to be honest, sadly, what I deserved for misplaying a couple of things that I could have done. But a fun way to end for sure.
I'm quite pleased with that game because afterwards he said, "I no longer hate phoenixes. I hate iron demons." Like, oh, it's about time your hatred was transferred.
Yeah, MVP was Iron Demons, but again, it's one of those matchups where it's just very, very good for them because
they're designed to kill ogres.
Yeah, it essentially hits on 5s for the most part, wounds on 2s or 3s versus some things, and then does D3 wounds. It's just perfect for killing ogres. And I don't think I roll less than an 8 on the artillery dice for numbers of shots, which was a little bit outrageous, to be honest. But he got it back when he stopped us from shooting his Mournfang. So, c'est la vie.
What was your secret objective?
Mine was I took the Blood and Glory one to break him, which I did sort of fairly comfortably, in the fact that he had his BSB left and 1 unit. So he's bang on 2 by the end. I think Damien took either not to have any of my units in his deployment at the end, or to get one of his into mine, which he succeeded with the Mournfang, or I didn't move my core forward, so he succeeded in that for sure. But it was one of those two. So it was a flat 10-10, very brutal, a few silly mistakes, but a very pleasant way to end the day in that regard. It was played in a good spirit, and we had a good laugh.
I would have taken 10-10 over what happened to me. So
yeah, like I say, with hindsight, I made a couple of genuine errors. I should have dealt with the Mournfang quicker because of the fastest threat. I should have not inexplicably forgotten that my BSB is stubborn, which there's just absolutely no getting away from. It was just some stupid things on my behalf. But it was a very good game. More importantly, we both enjoyed ourselves. And afterwards, 10-10 was a good way to finish because of the spirit the game had been played in.
Yeah, that's what it's about. Victory is side matter to enjoying it.
Yeah. But yes, it is. I mean, don't get us wrong. You're right. Like, number one, like, we're past the point where it's win at all costs nonsense. Like, it's not. That's not what it's all about. Winning's nice, obviously, and like everyone prefers winning. And anyone who says they don't is kidding themselves. Like, it's obviously nicer to win than it is to lose, or draw. But the more important thing is that it's fun. Like, we attend these events because we want to play Warhammer, and you want to do that with an opponent that makes it worthwhile playing.
Well said.
See, ray of sunshine. I told you.
Mr. Positive, you should get your own positivity podcast going.
I think I've missed my calling as a motivational speaker.
I know. If you'd have done that at the beginning of the pandemic, everyone would have been dancing in the streets.
I told Boris to chill out, and he took that as a to have a
Yeah,
party.
it took it a bit too far.
Well, this isn't a political podcast.
So, yeah, that's how I finished. I finished pretty much alongside Mark at mid-table. I was up at mid-table, unlike Mark, who was low on mid-table, just for clarity.
So all that positivity's gone now. 30 seconds after you were saying it's not all about winning.
Yeah, but yes, some people play Elves, though, and frankly, they deserve everything that comes their way.
Yeah, like I said at the time, I've got a 2 at ward save against abuse. So
Bad people play High Elves.
do your
Bad
worst.
people.
You said Dwarfs last time.
Oh no, Steve's just a bad person. People who play High Elves are bad people.
Let's make the distinction here.
Yes.
I don't play High Elves. I'm just bad generally.
Yeah, Steve's bad as a bad person, regardless of what he plays.
Yeah.
Well, anyway,
be goblins and I'll be bad. You know.
Yeah, plus 10 goblin list is somehow defeated the Banner of the World Dragon Larian list. Now that the Ogres have got their vengeance against the Chaos Dwarfs, how did you do, Steve, in the final?
Well, I had Alan on table 1 on our game. We both won our games pretty big. He was ahead of me, I think, at that point. I think he'd 20-0'd, and he was a couple of points ahead of me. He had another strong warriors list. He had a level 2 on a disc on metal with the usual 3 at wards, re-rolling 1s, blah blah blah. And then he had a BSB on a horse in use of Tzinch Knights with a blasted standard, a unit of Khorne Albert warriors, Chimera, obviously, because all warriors players have to take them. He had a unit of 3 Skull Crushers, so not 5.
Definitely 5.
And then a Hell Cannon. And I think I'm missing something in core, but I can't remember what it is now. So I'm sure that there was more than just one warrior.
Did he have a chariot?
Yes, that was it. He had a chariot, yes. I think it was a Khorne chariot. So yeah, very much a very, very strong, fast warriors list. So yeah, I was a little bit worried about it, to be honest. But it went quite well. I managed to get first turn, and within 2 turns the Chimera was dead because the organ gun just pointed out and said, I want it dead.
I approve.
Organ gun. Love it.
Yeah.
Just dead Chimera. Love it.
Yeah.
Method's less important.
Second turn, I did 10 wounds to it, and he passed 8 regen saves, and it was only on 2 wounds.
You see what I mean? You see what I mean? 8 out of 10 for a 4 at regen.
And I was just like, we had to check the dice because I was like, has he actually saved enough wounds to still live after that? But no, he hadn't. My grudge thrower helped out again by destroying itself turn 1. I think after the first
is that some sort of tactic you're using to
lull people into a false sense of security? That's what it is. I just go, oh, you see, I only need 2. I'll just take that one off.
Yeah, this one's just for a laugh.
Yeah, that was just for show. I like the model, but it's not actually going to do anything. So yeah, that blew itself up for the first time. I'd like to work out the odds on that. It's like rolling a 1, then rolling a 1, then rolling a 1, then rolling a 1.
100% apparently in this.
Yeah.
Oh, just rolling a 6 to steal someone's turn.
Yeah, so
literally 1% chance.
I'd basically bunkered up in a corner, standard dwarf tactic, but I'd left my hammer I bunkered up in the right corner, but I'd left my hammer as left to center. So basically anything that was coming down the flank either had to, if it wanted to go towards my main lines, had to leave its flank open to the hammers. So that caused Alan a few headaches. So then he had to divert stuff to deal with that. And then I think it all turned turn 3, really. I'd used my copter. He'd melted 1 copter from metal, and I used my bomber to divert the Crusher's away so I could get a flank charge of the Slayers, and they then beat them in combat and proceeded to chase them across the board until they hit the Hell Cannon. And then
You copy my table too, or game
Yeah,
two technically.
I did, yeah. I thought I'll do some white line tactics with Slayers this time. So they were happily legging it across the board, chasing down the Skull Crushers, and the knights that were facing off against my core blocks, and they probably could have chewed through them eventually. But the organ gun, having freshly seen off a Chimera, obviously packed itself full of gunpowder and pointed itself at the knights, and unloaded a horrendous amount of shots. And then Alan said, I've got the blasted standard, so on a 2-up, your strength's halved, which he then proceeded to roll a 1.
Oh!
So instead of like 12 strength 5 hits on the unit, I had 12 strength 10 hits on the unit. So that
What was his expression at that point?
I couldn't really say.
I can't imagine he was very happy about that.
No,
rightfully
it wasn't.
so. That's just upsetting.
That was a massive piece of luck in my favour, and that just evaporated the unit and put a wound on the BSB that was in the unit. So the BSB then decided that discretion was the better part of valour in the face of such organ gunnery, and ran off behind the Hell Cannon for a bit. The hammers and the chariot and the warriors faced off. I think he elected to charge with both, which I fled from, because I didn't fancy taking both of them in the face at the same time at that point. And that gave me a chance to move around my warrior block. So if the hammers then held the next time when they rallied, those units would have a warrior block in the flank. So then he split it. So he went the warriors towards the hammers, and the chariot charged into the warriors, which then held them up for quite some time. And but he failed the charge with the warrior block. I then proceeded to countercharge him with the hammers. I won that combat and ran them down. So at that point, pretty much the only thing that was left was the Hell Cannon chewing through the Slayers, and they were kind of doing a mutual destruction type approach. And I think the last turn, I only had a few Slayers left. I'd got the Hell Cannon down to half wounds. I'd killed two of his handlers by then. So it's probably about 50-50 which unit would die first. So he threw his BSB into it to help kill off the remaining Slayers. And I think there was 3 Slayers left at the very end. BSB then decided to kill them all, and the death blows finished off the BSB, which then gave him my secret mission of breaking his army, because there was no way I was catching his wizard, who was out of organ gun range and flying around with a 3-up ward. Yeah, that was that. The cannon finished off the last Skull Crusher that had managed to escape from the Slayers. So it was, in the end, I think it was 14-6 in points, but he didn't make his objective, which I think was, I can't remember what it was, but it's probably to kill my general.
Like everybody else had chosen.
Yeah. And I'd made mine by breaking his.
I'm sure I heard him bringing up the fact that unlikely combat at the end had killed his BSB and won you the objective.
Yes,
I could hear that happening from my table. So
yeah, it was risky on his part, because obviously it could happen, because it was only down to 1 wound left. But it was probably worth it to make sure the Slayers finished it off. The Hell Cannon could well have finished off the Slayers, but I think the BSB killed 6 or 7 in that combat overall before he died, and yeah, it's probably 50-50 whether the Hell Cannon would have died or not, killing off the Slayers. So either way, but he had the Hell Cannon at the end, and his general, and I had lost both Copters and the Slayer unit, and obviously the Grudge Thrower. That's just
Obviously the Grudge Thrower.
Yeah. So yeah, that ended up a 14-6, which then became a 17-3 was the objective, which meant that I lost. I came second by 1 point, which, to be honest, I was very, very happy with playing Dwarfs.
And now Mark can claim that he was beaten by the eventual winner.
That's
Yes.
true.
Yeah, I did look over and thought, well, I can't win too big, otherwise, Mark won't be able to have that claim.
Or more importantly, if Steve could make the claim that if Mark was just a little bit more competent, then he would have won.
Well, that is true.
Can I just, when I play this back to you and you go on about your
Facts don't lie.
positivity, shall I just edit that out?
But,
Oh,
yeah, Alan's a very good player. And
Very good.
It was only bad luck, I think. Because if, me evaporating that night, when really it should have been strength 3 armor piercing, which would have just tickled them rather than evaporating them. Would have made a huge difference.
Strength 10, that's going to make a right mess of, well, anything really.
Yeah, that's not what you want, is it?
No.
Nobody wants to run into a strength 10 organ gun. Nobody wants to run into a strength 5 organ gun.
No, it's like you brace the organ gun barrels with cannons. It's just a cannon battery. There you go.
Strapped 5 cannons together. Yeah, I had the moral victory of the entire tournament in that I was only beaten by the guy who won it. So what do you expect, And cost Steve the first place. So
Like an added bonus for you, if nothing. It really was, wasn't it?
So really, I've beaten you in a way, which means I win. I don't know.
I mean, the logic's...
Well, it beat me in a way in that we didn't play.
Yeah.
To determine who wins.
Yeah, beating in a way that's totally to one side of the actual rules of the game. But I'll take that.
Semantics.
So yeah, I came 10th, which it's a lie to say it doesn't. It's not slightly frustrating in the fact that if I'd done any better, I would have been a lot higher up the table. But no, I insisted on getting 20-0. But I'm over it now, I think.
I think, to be fair, with the exception of the top, by the end of it, the top 3, I think from about 4th to 10th were actually really quite close.
It's usually the case, isn't it? There's not that much in it.
Yeah. Well, anyone in the top 2 tables could have won it on the final game.
That made me feel worse. If I'd been told there's no way you could have come first, like, oh well, yeah. If you'd have 20-0, you'd have won the whole thing. I'd rather not have known.
Yeah, I think when you look at there wasn't much between the top 2 by the end of it. Obviously, was it 3 points, Steve? You got pipped by?
I think it was 1 point.
1 point.
1 point.
Yeah.
1 point in it.
That's even worse.
I don't think Alan was too far behind.
Alan,
Alan came 3rd, yeah.
Yeah. Alan was not. Well, there wasn't much between Alan and Andy, and 3rd and 4th, and then I think, say, from 5th down to 10th, there was only a few points in it as well. So it was a close tournament, and I think the comp is to sort of circle back to the actual sort of where we started. The comp made for a really interesting, really fun, and I think overall quite equal tournament. There was no massive power gap for anyone. Like Steve mentioned, not having lords and Highlander really limits some of the more game breaking. Well,
yeah, because I mean, you take things like people complain about, like, I'm not going to say phoenixes this time, Mark. I'm going to let you have that one. But like iron demons, for example,
BC blenders.
Yeah,
not Blender Lord in there. No demon princes.
Not that I think iron demons are broken, because I don't. But it's easy enough to deal with one of something that's quite tough. It's when you start having to deal with 2, or even 3. Like 1 chimera, they're good, but you can deal with 1 chimera. It's only 4 wounds. It's when you've got 2 flying at you. That's the problem.
Slightly more of a problem.
Yeah, and a lot of the other harder stuff, they often come in pairs, so it's they're a lot easier to deal with when there's only one of them. And so Highlander does cut that down. And as you say, Lords, suddenly the big spells are less prevalent because people aren't rolling them or they don't have the casting value to meet them. So Magic is playing a more reasonable effect on the game.
Yeah, I thought that in all of my games, Magic did really quite minimal. And speaking to some a lot of other people, it didn't do a lot in a lot of games by the looks of it. It was a little bit here, a little bit there. It wasn't the make or break that it can quite often be. I
must say the Magic I cast was awesome.
Yeah, yes, yeah. No, I thought yours was game breaking. To be honest,
it was. Yeah, yeah. I just kept accidentally casting Remove Grudge Thrower.
Yes. Turn 1.
Yeah,
that's
6 dice. Remove Grudge Thrower. There we go.
That's what you've got to do to unlock the strength 10 cannon shots on
exactly.
On the organ gun.
It's
something I noticed about
the god of dice.
So I noticed about Magic though is if you were rolling lots of dice, that made it more of a problem.
Yes, low magic phases.
Yeah, because if you've got I rolled 12 dice in in the first game, like, well, what am I going to do with this? Because he's got 6, so he's likely to stop. If I 6 dice something, am I going to 6 dice something on a level 2 mage and risk the miscast and blow up a lot of my unit and possibly, I can only miscast twice on the wounded ones and he's dead. So I don't really want to go for the miscast on that. So I thought that the 12 dice was more of a problem. Like, I've only got 2 spells to spend these 12 dice on. So that was an interesting thing that had never come up before. So I did like the restrictions for how you're thinking about problems from a different way.
And I think another thing that you often find, like in tournaments, is that a lot of people take a level 4 just to cancel out the opponent's level 4, not inherently because they're going to do a lot.
Yeah.
And I think actually, if you look at it, just having the Highlander actually benefits slightly the armies that should be strong in Magic, because it's quite easy for armies like vampires or lizards to double up on level 2s with Highlander.
Yeah,
because with Vamps you can have a vampire level 2 and a necromancer level 2, and you could even have a White King holding one of the bound spells. With lizards, all you've got to do is you've got to have you could have a Saurus BSB, then you've got a chief at 40 points, and then then you can get 2 priests
second skink. Yeah,
it's nearly it is impossible for high elves to do it, because you've got there's the mage and then dragon mage in the same hero slot, so you're never gonna you've not got the points to pay for a dragon mage and cycle back to a mage.
Certainly not a 2K, which I thought was interesting for sure.
It's just that forcing of decisions to be made that you can incorporate a lot more without those restrictions, obviously. But I liked how it focused you on thinking about things like that. But it also makes some things nearly auto includes, like the Chaos Familiar, because that's a way to get a pseudo level 3.
Oh yeah, the spell familiar.
Yeah. And what was that thing that Graham used, where it's like you roll 5 dice to channel and channel on 5 or 6, but if you roll a 1, it reduces your leadership?
Oh, is it a chaos? I think it's a Chaos Warrior item, isn't it?
It's something like the skull of something or other.
Skull of Katam or something like that.
Yeah. Because anything to give you that little advantage from just a level 2. So it's things that you see familiar quite a lot, but I've never seen that item before.
Yeah, I think then taking things like the ruby ring is handy, just to chuck an extra couple of dice out to spread the dice around a bit more.
Yeah, I think
give something else you might have to dispel.
I think that's a good shout, to be fair. And certainly, if I was say playing me Empire, like a witch hunter with the ruby ring would just be quite cheeky at this point value, I think. And with this restriction, I mean, witch hunters are cheeky anyway.
I like witch hunters, just in general.
Steve
Killing blow on a fireball.
Steve likes them on a flying carpet.
I do. I love my witch hunters on a flying carpet. They're awesome.
So if you were to do it again, what would you do differently?
Get 2 more tournament points. That's what I'd do
Or make
differently.
me get 2 more tournament
I'll
points?
make you get 2 more tournament points. Yeah.
Oh, I think I'd probably just not make. It sounds. It's easy with hindsight. Like it's 2020. Not make the errors that I made, and probably just be not fight against me nature to play aggressive, and actually just let myself loose a little bit more.
I would find the points to put a rune of forging on my grudge thrower.
I think that would have paid for itself.
It would, yeah.
I think, like I was saying at the start, if I was to change it, I'd change the list to include that Razor standard, and I would probably have dropped the Sodomite because it did not effectively nothing, and probably put on a Ruby Ring of Ruin, and I might swap to High Magic because Drain Magic in the last game would have made a massive difference.
But your wizard was dead.
Well, that's true. Because the wizard has to be alive to cast it, doesn't it?
No, I mean with hindsight, he also wouldn't have had his wizard dead. Obviously, Steve.
Yeah, I would have changed
yes.
that. And then I would have changed everything about how the last game went. That's the only small change I would have made.
Yeah. But I know obviously Shane's looking to already plan sort of the next event. I look forward to whatever he does with it. Like Shane always runs a good event. I must give a shout out to Beanie Games as well, which what an excellent venue. And Steve, the owner, gave us all, like everyone who attended, a £5 voucher, which was just
It was just very nice.
incredible. Yeah, like it was really wonderful to on his behalf to encourage like more wargaming. Like I know Shane's already talking about holding another event. So
I'd definitely do it again. If Shane organised another one, I'd definitely go again.
yeah, absolutely.
Well, I think that's about it for the review of the tournament. Any final thoughts, gentlemen?
If Steve finishes his first games before me, I'll throw some points to avoid him next time.
Right. Well, we've got the second place. Where did you place, Scott?
8th. I came 8th.
2nd, 8th, and 10th, and there's literally no better ranks in the tier. In the final rankings, there's no better ranks than that. So can't say fairer than that. So thank you, chaps, for going through it again, and thanks everyone. Anytime you want. You can be a recurring guest like Guinan of Star Trek: The Next Generation. Anyway, thanks very much. See you on the next one.
Yeah, thanks, Mark.